Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun is a fantastic free retro RPG game, and here are all the basics you need to know in order to get up and running and enjoy the game. Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome to today's tutorial video. Now, while you can get the game from Steam, where it isn't free, you can legitimately get the game from other places for free, including patches and more modern updates. So, if you don't already have the game, head out to one of the websites like cnc.org and download the game from there. Follow the install instructions, which from my experience are relatively straightforward, and get the game running. Once you're in, this is what the client may look like, and one of the first things I recommend you do is you go into the options and adjust your screen resolutions. So if we go to options down here, you can see there is an in-game resolution and a client resolution. So the client resolution you can keep at a high resolution, that's fine. But the in-game resolution, you probably don't want to use 1440p or 4K if your computer and monitor supports that. You may want a smaller resolution. The reason for this is the game doesn't scale its interface and things will appear too small on your screen. Units will be ever so tiny and the menu options will be very small as well. I recommend something around the 720 mark, but you can play around with this and see what works best for you and your monitor setup. So if you set your resolution to 720 like me, this is what you will see. And if I unpause the game, you can see that their units and buildings are this sort of size on my screen. So what else is on the screen? Well, yes, like I said, we've got units and buildings, and we'll have a closer look at the units and buildings soon, but we have a number of different things. When I press escape there, or you click on options, you get the menu where you can change things about the game, including the game speed. This you might want to play around with to see what you feel like is the right speed of the game to play. Too fast and things will come flying at you before you see what's going on, and too slow you'll have moments where you sat there thinking, well, I've got nothing to do right now, but you can just move that slider and adjust it to how it works best for you. There's also keyboard and sound options and so forth, and you can save and load your game. Now, in the top right hand corner of the screen, you have your credits, and we'll go into why you need these later. Beneath that, if you've got a powered radar, you will have your mini-map. This will show you the whole lay of the land that you've explored, and you can click on it to move the screen around. Beneath the mini-map, we have 4 options. The first is an option to repair your buildings. Now, your buildings do cost money to repair, those credits, but you can use this tool to do so. Next up is the option to sell a building. If you build a building you decide you don't want, or you decide you want to move it to a different location, you can use this to sell a building. Next up is the power toggle tool. Buildings will be powered up when you place them, and you most of the time want to leave them like this, but there are some situations where you might decide to power down a building. This option, the third option there, is for doing that. And finally, there are waypoints, and we'll look more into waypoints later. Beneath them, there are 2 columns of things. The first one is the things that you can build, buildings that you can build, and this will change depending on your situation. Now, I'm demonstrating in a scenario here, in like a skirmish, and the principles that I'm taking you through can just be applied to the game's missions if you choose to do them. So at different scenarios and in different situations, you'll have access to different buildings. The same can be said for the units. On the right hand side here, we have a number of infantry units, and if you go later and unlock more stuff, that's where you'll have your vehicles as well. So you can request to build them from there. When you do request to build any of these, you'll get something that pops up on the screen like a little green clock, and it will go through until it is ready to build. So if I build a turbine, you can see it goes all the way around and then it says it's ready. You can cancel this by right clicking, or you can actually stack them up by continuing to click with the left mouse button. You can stack up to 5 of any one of the units. And you can also put them on hold and cancel them. And finally, next to the units and buildings, we have the power bar. This particular power bar is looking in a sorry state at the moment, mostly red with a little bit of yellow. Ideally, this wants to have green in it as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that power, how much you need, why you need it, along with the credits now. Before you go into battle, it's important to understand the economy. This is quite simple. There are credits and there is power. Power goes up when you build power plants, and it goes down when you build buildings that require power. To build those power plants, you need those credits. And to get the credits, you need to get something called Tiberium. That's kind of where the game gets its name from. There are two sorts of Tiberium, the green and the blue. The green is more common usually, but the blue is worth more if you're able to harvest it. Now, you have to harvest it. To harvest it, you will need a harvester and a Tiberium refinery for your harvester to drop it off at. If you build a Tiberium refinery, you are given a harvester, but later you are able to build harvesters by themselves if you wish to have more. So, you need to use your harvesters to collect the Tiberium, bring it back to the refinery, and when you do, your credits go up. You can then use the credits to build buildings and units. So you've got the game, you've got it installed, you know what the interface is like, and you've got an idea of the economy. Let's give you an example about how to start setting up one of your games to be able to then get into combat and do things. Remember, this is just the basics, so I'm going to give you through a bit of an introduction of how to start a game, and we'll talk about some of the aspects of the units. Now, if you want to know any more specifics about anything more in the game, do put all your questions down in the comments section. And again, I'm going to be demonstrating this in a skirmish, but you can apply all of the logic that I'm showing you to when you're doing the missions. The difference is with the missions, you might have certain objectives, or you may have certain units or buildings available or not available to you during that mission. So, let's start a game. When you start a standard skirmish game, you are given a mobile construction vehicle. You can double click it to deploy it, and then you get the ability to build a power plant. Now, I click the power plant and it starts constructing. This is a GDI power plant. I'm not playing as Nod on this occasion. Now, the power plants for GDI come in as they are, and once you've built one of them, you get the option to build the turbines. These power plants can be upgraded with up to 2 more turbines. There you go, I've just added 1 turbine. Now, something you want to do quite early on probably is get a Tiberium refinery. You get a free harvester with this, like I mentioned earlier, and this will allow you to then get more credits. Now, in this particular skirmish, with the way that the game was set up, I was given 10,000 credits to start with. Now, whether you go for a refinery or a barracks next, after your power plant, is kind of up to you. You have to decide whether you're going to need troops to attack or defend with right away, and use the money that you've got in the bank, or whether you want to get a harvester down as quickly as possible so that you can start doing more things with even more money. And that's something you're going to have to work out. Another thing you might have to consider is whether you want just one refinery, or if you want to try and get a second one relatively early on in the game. Having a second refinery does mean that you're going to have more income quicker towards the beginning of the game. But a refinery costs you 2,000 credits and a good amount of time to build. The more something costs, the longer it takes to build. So if you hover over, you can see a power plant is 300, the refinery is 2,000. I'm going to place the refinery down here, and when you're placing buildings, you can see that sometimes you get red squares, and then there's some that are white. If you have any red squares, you will not be able to place your building. Okay, so you need to find somewhere to put it in the white zone, and you can only go so far out. You can't put it in the black area where you can't see, and you can't build a building too far away from other buildings.
New construction options.
So now we've got the refinery down, the harvester that comes with it is going to go off and find the nearest source of Tiberium. And you can see down here, there's some green Tiberium nearby. So now we've got some more construction options. You see, as we build more buildings, this unlocks more different things. So I'm going to go with that barracks next, just in case the computer that I'm playing against sends some sort of troops or attacks me, and I want to have something to defend with. So the barracks doesn't cost much, it's 300 to put down,
Construction complete.
and I'm going to pop it over there.
New construction options.
So now we have both units and building construction. And we can do both at the same time. So for example, if we try to build a radar,
Building.
you can see that all the other buildings grey out. And if I try and get another Tiberian refinery,
Unable to comply. Building in progress.
we get told that building's in progress and we can't comply. But what we can do is build units
Training.
at the same time. So you can train units
Unit
at the
ready.
same time as training a building or constructing a building. So we can queue up, like I said before. So I'm going to get
Training.
another 3 light infantry to get 4 in
Unit
total.
ready.
And you can see our harvester is now
Unit
back.
ready.
And our
Unit ready.
credits amounts will be going up.
Unit ready.
There you go. You can hear that ticking up sound there as the credits go up. If you click on the harvester, you can see how much it's got in it because there's little tiny squares next in the bottom left-hand corner of the harvester. That indicates how much Tiberium that harvester is carrying at that time. So let's get this radar down. If I click the radar and pop it in,
New construction options.
you can see that we have the radar in the top right coming in, and we've got even more construction options. We can get helipads and cannons and gates and walls. So far, my only defense is this inventory, and I can drag over them to select them, and I can left click to tell them where to go. If I right click, it's going to deselect them. Now, a real good tip is that if you select a unit and press T on your keyboard, that's the letter T, it will highlight all of that type on the screen. You can move them around. Now, let's have a look at the next few things. This base here is a very kind of basic starter base. You can see power is red and amber. I'm going to get another power turbine,
Building.
and we'll pop that on here.
Construction complete.
And you can see that we've got a tiny bit of green now on our power bar. That's fantastic. But I don't want just troops. I want to be able to make vehicles as well. And for that, we need a war factory.
Building.
So we will build a war factory. Now, you've got to think in terms of offense and defense. Here, my only
Silence
defense
needed.
currently is my troops. But we can add more defense if we want to. Now, I just heard a call out that silos were needed, and that's because we are getting more Tiberian in than we're kind of spending at the moment, and you can only hold so much. If you click on the refinery, you can see we've got an extra bar. If you click on any building, you can see we get a bar, and that bar tells you the health status of that building. Okay, and you actually got your power drain on the what is it? On the power plant too. But on the refinery we have this extra bar, and that is the storage of your credits, of your Tiberium. Now, if you want more, you can use Tiberium silos, so you can build up more credits, and it might be an idea to get 1 or 2 of them later, just as a bit of a buffer to build some stuff up. Now, while we are waiting for our war factory, I'm going to ask for a few disc throwers. And the reason for having different troops is they've got different weapons and are good at different things. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not going to go through the entire list of all the different units, both in the GDI and the NOD, in the standard game and in Firestorm. But I'll give you some examples. The light infantry have a kind of automatic gun weapon and it fires bullet-like things. And they are good at shooting down pretty much things that don't have high armor values. For example, like standard troops. The other things we've got down here are disc throwers. These throw an explosive disc, and they're good against things with more higher armor. For example, tanks and stuff.
Yes, sir. Moving out.
There we go. So different things are susceptible for different sorts of attack. Let's get this war factory down.
New construction options.
And you can see that we've got some new construction options for different units and so forth. The Juggernaut is a very good long-range thing. The Hover MLRS is good for missiles and firing. Wolverine, this is a relatively small walking unit. Again, it's got a kind of gun sort of weapon, relatively good against troops, so we'll get one of them. And the good thing about using units as a defensive option, like we are now, there's our Wolverine, that's quite good against troops, is that if you want to, you can then use those troops to attack with. but they tend to be a little bit, oh, what's the word? Kind of susceptible to getting killed. So what we can do is we can put walls and gates around our particular base, and we can also do component towers. Now, component towers are quite important for GDI because they allow you to then build different components on the top to defend against stuff. So let's have a quick look at that.
New construction option.
There's our component tower, right? And that gives us access to the Vulcan cannon, which again, that's more of a low armor troopy sort of weapon. Or the RPG upgrade, which is better against the higher armor things. So we were talking about tanks and stuff. But the one that we're going to get is the SAM upgrade. This allows you to shoot things that are flying in the air. So at the moment, if something came along the ground, we have units that could deal with that. If something flew over our base and started shooting us, we would have nothing to defend ourselves. So there we go. We'll put that on top. Now, if you're playing as Nod, they don't have a component tower. They actually have different buildings for the different things. They have lasers to go against troops, and they have SAM sites where you can just put them straight on the ground. But there we go. There is kind of the basics. You need to be able to think about how you're going to defend yourselves with both on the ground with either troops or cannons on turrets, or you're going to have to think about having some SAM sites down to defend yourself against the air.
This content is supported by Viewer Plus.
Now, sometimes doing gates and walls are a good tactic. It allows you to kind of pen your defenses in a particular location.
Construction complete.
There we go. Let's put a gate down. Or, if you want to, you can use gates and walls to try and funnel attacks or stifle attacks in different areas. So, for the walls, you can place down one piece of wall. And then when you've got more wall, you don't have to place it right next to it. You can actually drag it out a number of squares. Oh, there we go. We're getting attacked from the south of our base. That's a good thing about having troops to defend your base rather than static structures. You can send them over to deal with the problem.
Awaiting orders.
Now you can see our harvester there has a green bar above it. That's its particular health status right now. And if we click any of the other units, you can see they have the green bars as well. To attack the enemy, we just highlight what we want to attack and we click. So when you click on an enemy, units don't move. Well, they can move, but they'll move to attack. There you go. Let's take these guys down, defend our base. You can see those disc throws going in there as well. Nice. Good. So there's the basics of a basic base. You need to be able to get your buildings down so that you can create troops, and you'll need your troops for both attacking and defense. And you can have other structures as well that helps you with your defense, like your gates and walls and your turrets and towers. You need to make sure that you get a radar down, otherwise you're not going to get that mini-map. And you also need to make sure you've got enough power so that your base is powered. You also need to make sure you've got refineries and harvesters so that you can then get more credits coming in too. And it's a balancing act between these few. If I was to sell my power plant right now,
Structure sold.
you can see that I get a unit, we've ran out of power, and our radar's gone as well. That was the sell icon there that I use. To repair them, it's the spanner that we spoke about previously, but none of my buildings have been damaged yet, so you can see we've got that little cross. If they were, I could just click on them to be able to get them repaired. And I can also unpower them. There we go.
Offline.
So I can make this building offline if I haven't got enough power, and you can see that I'm now not able to build those particular units. They're all grayed out. So in theory, if we go along and we take these buildings offline, then in theory we might be able to get enough power to be able to get the radar up and going. I mean, we can't because we haven't got any, but that gives you the idea. I just noticed that one of these buildings is a little bit damaged, so we can then repair it. There we go. And that costs you credits as well. So repairing costs credits. Let's do it with this one as well. You can see the credits go down when I did that little repair job. Okay, the basics of a base. Now let's have a look at a few tips. Okay, so to talk about a few tips and stuff, I've moved over to Nod, and we've got a base that's comparable to previously. There's a few differences. We don't have disc throwers, we have rocket infantry. You can see that we've got our, there's our power plant, but we don't add turbines to it. What we can do is build an advanced power plant if we want to.
Cancelled.
Like I said previously, we don't need towers to build SAM sites. We can build them directly. We also get laser turrets, EMP cannons, and things like that too. And instead of like the Wolverine, we have attack buggies and attack cycles, tick tanks, and things like that as well. Now, you can see that we have pavement. You might say, well, why do I need pavement?
Construction complete.
There's our SAM site. Pavement is really good for a number of reasons. First of all, it stops vehicles going underground and coming up through the ground as well. Now, we say this because there are some vehicles in the game on the Nod team that can burrow under the ground and go across. And some of these vehicles can also carry engineers. Now, we haven't spoken about engineers yet, but they are an interesting thing to use in the game. You can use them to repair big bridges as long as that setting's enabled, and you can use them to actually repair buildings and stuff if that's enabled too. But you can also use them to capture enemy buildings. So if you had engineers in some sort of subterranean vehicle and you made them go under the ground, you can capture the enemy base relatively easily, getting past their outside resources. Now we can have a closer look at that in a minute. There's the engineer. There he is. What I'm going to do is also build a tech center, and then I will show you maybe some of those burrowing vehicles. So you might want to surround your base with a good amount of pavement, especially if you're playing against a Nod player that has those subterranean vehicles. Also, there are some weapons that can deform the land, and pavement stops that from happening. These are much more advanced weapons and something that we might look in future tutorial videos. Okay, so what else have we got to talk about? Well, here you can see we've got the option to build a harvester. That will come from our war factory, our Nod war factory. But apart from that, you have all the basics there ready to roll. Okay, so now I've built this tech center, we have more construction options. One of them is that subterranean APC. Oh, we got attacked there. Let's see if we can repair a few things. There we go. Good. Nice.
Unit ready.
You see we've got this subterranean APC now.
Yes, sir.
That means we can carry troops in there. We could put our engineer inside. But you can see that if I tell this APC to come down here, it must go off the pavement before drilling under the ground and then coming back up again. It's a good way to get people, engineers, inside the enemy base. You can deploy them from there, and you can tell them to do various different things. Now, if this was an enemy base, I'd be capturing the buildings, but in this case, I'm repairing the building with the engineer.
Sir, on my way.
There we go. So that's a look at the beginnings of a base in both the GDI and the Nod state, and also talking about a couple of things like the pavement and stuff. We're going to get a little bit more advanced in future videos if you guys want to see them, and your questions down in the comments on this video will help guide me with the sort of things that you want to know. I'm going to give you a bit more of a deep dive on some of the vehicles as well, so get subscribed on the channel so you can find out when that video is coming along. But that is going to be all for now. I hope this is going to get you started with a game that is good fun to play and a fantastic retro game in my opinion.
Silos needed.
Enjoy the game, thank you very much for watching, and until I see you next time, goodbye. Get him! Hey, we got him.